Chair Stone, we are live and you're welcome to start the meeting.
Thank you. I don't see the other committee members. Oh, here they come. Can the committee members start their video?
Mine is on.
We have ours on, Chair Stone.
We're on. I can see everyone and hear everyone.
Okay, here we go. All right. Little glitch there. Thank you. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. The procedures for the meeting are as per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. And I confirm that we do have quorum. So, moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated December 9, 2020, be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Helena Renwick, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated November 11, 2020, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. I seem to have a lag here, so I may take a moment to recognize all the hands. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. And please note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by committee prior to making a decision on the applications. If you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. And we are now moving on to the first application. I think Curtis is speaking to this application.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Stone, members of committee. Just going to pull the presentation up here quickly. There we go. So the subject property is located at 388 Muskoka Road 10. The lot is designated community residential and zoned residential 1 with exception 0607. On July 21st, 2020, Planning Committee approved a zoning bylaw amendment for this lot to change the zoning from a residential 1 zone to a residential 1 zone with an exception to reduce the lot frontage from 60 meters to 30 meters and the area requirement from 1 hectare to 1,985 meters squared, all to facilitate the creation of 1 new residential lot. Subsequently, on August 20th, 2020, the Committee of Adjustment conditionally approved a consent application to permit the creation of that lot. As a requirement of the provisional consent approval, a survey was prepared. The survey identified that both the severed and retained lands have an area of 1,860 meters squared, whereas 1,985 meters was approved. As a result, the applicant is now proposing to recognize a lot area of 1,860 meters squared as meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw. In regards to policy, although the proposed lots are slightly smaller than previously anticipated, they remain a similar size to the existing lots in the surrounding area. As such, it is anticipated that the proposed lots in the future residential development they would permit would be in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, and no objections have been received. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments about the application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their phones to indicate they would like to address committee.
Chair Stone, I see one hand raised.
Sorry, I lost the connection there. All right, was there one person? And if there is, can we bring them in?
Sorry, I think we're having a few technical difficulties, but yes, there was one hand raised and the individual has been brought in.
Morning, Chris. You're on mute.
Okay, there we go. Good morning, Chair Stone. Thank you for hearing me. It's Chris Zanetti, 152 Hawks Road, Port Sydney, Ontario, P0B1L0. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yes, I can.
So, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Sivert, yes? Mr. Sivert identified exactly what's happening here. Most of the committee members, or some of them, have seen the same file for the last 4 or 5 months. So this is the final piece of it because, as you know, when the survey was done, it didn't meet the state, what was stated in the bylaw. So this resulted in a minor variance application having to be put in, which is what we're at today, and it's basically straightforward, just to meet the what the survey said, the square meterage of each lot was what the survey said.
That's great, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to the application?
At this time, members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no raised hands.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions about the application? All right, seeing none. Here we go. Okay, moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A32-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.2.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P. and permit a minimum lot area of 1,860 square meters for a lot on private services as meeting the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Chris.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Stone, members of committee.
There was what? All right, before we move on to the next application, I just want to point out that the Spears application, A29-2020 HTE, has been deferred, as well as the Ontario Inc. at 72 Main Street East, A34-2020 HTE, has also been deferred for this meeting. All right, I believe Jasmine is on our next application for McDonald.
Thank you, Chair Stone, members of committee. Excuse me, the subject property is located at 187 and 189 Hood Road. The lots are designated waterfront and zone shoreline residential 1. The applicant is proposing to merge 2 existing lots in order to construct a new dwelling. A minor variance is required to reduce the southern side yard setback from 6 meters to 4 meters for the dwelling only. The proposed dwelling will meet the applicable provisions of the zoning bylaw with respect to lot coverage and setbacks, with the exception of the side yard setback. Despite the reduction, the side yard contains sufficient area and existing mature vegetation to buffer the proposed development, and a letter of support was provided from the abutting neighbor to the south. As the subject lands contain areas of steep slopes and are within 500 meters of a non-operating waste disposal site, a site suitability report was undertaken, which concluded that the proposed location is suitable for the construction of a dwelling and that the presence of the waste disposal site would pose a very low risk to the proposed development. As the shoreline of the subject lands contains existing stone retaining walls in some grassed areas, staff have included a recommendation to require the removal of the shoreline hardening and to reestablish a natural shoreline vegetative buffer to a depth of 15 meters outside of the permitted amenity area. These matters and the recommendations of the site suitability report will be implemented through site plan control. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and to the Mary Lake Association. 1 letter of support was received from an abutting neighbor. 1 letter of objection was also received prior to the meeting, which was forwarded to committee yesterday. The letter of objection cited concerns with overcrowding in the area and as well as the use of a right-of-way. It should be noted that the proposed development would reduce density from the existing development rights for 2 dwellings down to 1, and would also reduce the permitted number of accessory structures as the lots would be merged. In addition, the right-of-way, the lands referred to as the right-of-way appear to be in private ownership with access for properties towards Hood Road. So that would actually be a civil matter and isn't dealt with through this application. The application appears to conform to the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. Before we move on, can you just clarify something? The letter of objection implies that they were one of the applicants of the above noted properties. Was the letter of objection from a neighbor?
It wasn't from a direct neighbor. It was from someone who accesses off of Pioneer Avenue, I believe.
But was not one of the applicants?
It wasn't one of the applicants, no.
Thank you very much. All right. Does the applicant or the representative wish to comment on the application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there is one hand raised. A reminder to please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning, Council. Can you see me there?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Jay Brubaker here, 577 Muskoka Road 10, P0B1L0. I'm with SML Contracting. I don't have anything further to add other than to make myself available for any questions this morning.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. All right. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment about the application?
Members of the public are reminded to please use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? Helena Renwick.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Just a question, and I think it furthers to what you had just mentioned, that the letter of objection was from it stated a co-owner of the property. So the one that agreed to the one that agreed was the father on the north side, sorry, on the south side, and the person that objected was on the north side. But if Jasmine, would you be able to bring up the map again of where the properties are, the two properties?
Sure, just give me one moment here.
I just.
So these are where the subject properties would be. And I believe this strip here is the right of way that the person was referring to, but it is actually private property.
Okay. I guess there was another photograph, another map that actually had a lot of detail along that, I guess on the northern side. And there was another picture where you could actually see part of the house sitting, like another house sitting on that property line. Am I mistaken?
Was it this one?
Let me just, sorry.
Here, perhaps?
I just wanted to clarify who is here. It was an aerial view. This one here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see where it says Pioneer Avenue?
Yes. So to clarify, the letter of objection wasn't received from this direct property owner. When they said co-owner, I believe what they were referring to is they're co-owner of a property that's along Pioneer Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
it wasn't from the direct abutting neighbor.
But just to clarify, that where that Pioneer Avenue or that red line is along the, I guess it would be along the north side. Does it not look like the house is sitting, a part of that property is sitting on the lot line?
Yeah, and that would just be, we did try to adjust the mapping, but it isn't survey accurate, unfortunately. Okay. The lot line can be a bit off. So if we look at the actual survey that they had done, it doesn't appear that that cottage is encroaching on that lot line.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Kenneth Donald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Just to clarify with the complainant that the right-of-way issue is a civil matter, will that feedback be given to the complainant so that it's clear to them that if they want to make an issue of it, they have to take it through civil court?
Yeah, absolutely. I can follow up with them to let them know sort of what the process is, because there may be a misunderstanding through you, Chair Stones. What I understand is that people have historically used that piece of property to access from MBC lands, but really there's only a small number of properties that actually have a legal right of way over it.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions. If Mr. Brubaker could stop sharing your video, that would be great. Okay. There we go. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that minor variance application A30-2020 HDE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.3.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008 66P in order to reduce the side yard setback from 6 meters to 4 meters for a single detached dwelling only, conditional on the lots being merged on title, the original shore road allowance being stopped up, closed, and purchased, the stone retaining walls being removed, and a shoreline vegetative buffer being reestablished to a depth of 15 meters outside of the permitted amenity area, and the recommendations of the site suitability review prepared by Duke Engineering, dated November 26, 2020, being implemented through site plan control. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right, and Jasmine, you're on to the Thompson application.
Sure, thank you. The subject property is located at 359 West Fox Lake Road. The lot is designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential 1. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct a single detached dwelling with a slightly larger footprint in the same general location as a dwelling recently destroyed in a fire. A minor variance is required to reduce the front yard setback from 20 meters to 10.5 meters and the side yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters for the dwelling only. Due to the topography of the lot, the available building envelope is very limited. Although the setback to the lake and side lot line would be reduced from the current zoning standards, the new dwelling is proposed in approximately the same location as the previous dwelling in an area that is clear of natural vegetation and outside of the areas of steep slopes. The proposed dwelling is low profile and modest in size and represents a minor change to the previously existing development on the lot. In support of the application, a fish habitat assessment was completed, which categorizes the shoreline as type 2 fish habitat and includes recommendations to restore the shoreline buffer with native trees, shrubs, and ground cover to enhance nearshore fish habitat and maintain the stability of the steep slopes present on the lot, as well as implement erosion and sediment control measures. The recommendations will be implemented through site plan control. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act into the Fox Lake Association, and no objections were received. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we have one hand raised.
Let's bring him in.
As a reminder, please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address.
Hi, it's Mark Thompson. My mailing address is 4637 Concession 11, and that's in Puslinch, Ontario, N0B2J0. I'm here representing my parents who are also with me. So yes, Jasmine clearly covered all of our concerns. We're just trying to rebuild a structure that was demolished in a fire early this spring. And again, relatively the same footprint, but we're just trying to square it off and modernize it a bit. I didn't formally submit it, but there is a supporting letter from our neighbor or supporting email from our neighbor from the south, as well as the letter from the Lake Association.
Awesome, thank you. I'll call on the public. Anyone in the public that wishes to make any comments about this application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Members of committee, any comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Can you just stop sharing your video? Thank you. All right, moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A33-2020 HTE be approved. the purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 5.3.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to reduce the front yard setback from 20 meters to 10.5 meters, reduce the southerly side yard setback from 6 meters to 3 meters, both for a single detached dwelling only. Conditional on the existing 0.95 square meter pump house, 1.64 square meter privy, and 2.41 square frame shed being removed. The 15-meter shoreline buffer being revegetated with native species, and the recommendations of the fish habitat assessment prepared by Riverstone Environmental Solutions dated September 25th, 2020, being implemented through site plan control. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. So now that all the comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. We will now move on to the non-public portion of the meeting to deal with consent applications. If the applicant or their agent wishes to make comments regarding their application, please raise your hand after the presentation. All right, Jasmine, you're speaking to the Bigelow application.
The subject property is located at 219 Town Line Road West. The lot is designated residential and zoned residential 2 with exception 0290, which permits a lot frontage of 10 meters and a secondary dwelling unit with it in each side of a semi-detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to create one new residential lot and establish reciprocal rights of ways over the shared driveway for the severed and retained lots. Each lot would have an area of approximately 511 meters squared and a minimum of 10 meters of frontage on Town Line Road West. Both parcels are proposed to be developed with a semi-detached dwelling containing a secondary dwelling unit. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. One letter of concern was received from an adjacent property owner raising concerns with filling that has occurred on the subject lands and the potential impact on adjacent lands. Although the town of Huntsville does not have a site alteration bylaw to prohibit the placement of fill and constraint mapping does not identify wetlands, there is a warm water stream and features consistent with a wetland at the rear of the subject lands. To mitigate negative impacts on these features, staff are recommending that the subject lands be subject to an agreement to implement the requirement for a construction mitigation and drainage plan to address any potential impacts of site alteration and development to the stream and wetland. Further, staff are recommending that confirmation be provided that all imported fill is either located entirely on the subject lands or if otherwise has been accepted in its location by any affected adjacent landowner. The application appears to conform to the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. All right, committee members, any comments or questions? Kenneth Donald.
Thanks, Chair Sloan. Through you to Jasmine. A question about, you mentioned that there would be an agreement between the property owners. Who's responsible for putting that agreement in place and how would that be managed?
Sure. Through you, Chair Stone. So the agreement specifically that would be registered on title would just be to implement the requirement for a construction mitigation and a drainage plan that would then be dealt with through the building permit process. The other condition would be separate, and it would either be confirmation when they have the survey done from a surveyor that there is no fill on adjacent lands. So that could take the form of them providing stakes so that we could go out and do a site visit to see that it is within the subject property, or else we would ask the applicant to provide letters from the adjacent landowners saying that they have no concerns with accepting the fill if it is on their property.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be resolved that Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B 43-2020 HTE for the creation of one new residential lot and to establish reciprocal rights of way over both the severed and retained lots. Conditional on a registerable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing, a site inspection fee of $230 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $175 being paid to the town of Huntsville, confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that all imported fill is located entirely on the subject lands, or confirmation from adjacent owners indicating they accept fill. The owner entering into and registering on title an agreement with the town of Huntsville pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, to implement the requirement for a construction mitigation and drainage plan prepared by a qualified professional to be submitted as part of the building permit application.
For agent wishes to make comments during their application, please raise your hand after the presentation, even in the public.
So before I call the vote, does the applicant wish to speak to this application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there is one hand raised, so we will bring them into the meeting now. A reminder to please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. John P. Gallagher, 24 Hibbard Road, Huntsville, P1H 1C9. I'm here on behalf of Garth Bigelow. Garth purchased the property a few months ago, and when he did purchase it, that fill was on the site. He didn't import any fill to the site. However, he doesn't have any issue with the conditions to ensure that there's no negative impacts on his neighbors. This is an infill. This severance was approved previously in 2019, and the previous owner failed to fulfill the conditions. And we think that the recommendations that staff have put in, both through the surveyor and the building permit process, will ensure that there's no negative impact on the adjacent uses. I'd be glad to answer any questions should you have any. Thanks.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions of Mr. Gallagher? All right. Well, you've heard the resolution. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right. That concludes it. So moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 9:34 a.m. All in favor? And that's carried. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
It's a big Merry ho ho. Right back at you.